obtain some income so that they would be able to rectify their infringements on their own. So what is the infringement? If you buy some securities, some shares, you don't sell them, but as of December 31 of the reporting year, you have those shares, you are obliged to declare them. Secondly, if you buy and sell the shares within a year, you need to look whether you see any growth in income. If you do, you must declare this income. All of those requirements, and they are provided for by the tax code. Any income of a physical person, of an individual, is to be taxed. It must be declared. So we only declare the growth. Well, if I haven't sold, but I have bought shares, I have some assets. I have some shares. So those assets, those shares must be set out in a declaration. There will be no income in this case, and there will be no reason for taxation. But the very asset, the very property must be shown in declaration. We have 240 form, personal income tax, that must be submitted no later than March 31. If you sell the shares throughout the year, when there is some growth, some differential between buy and sell price, if you see a positive value, it must be shown in your income tax declaration. These are the requirements. We must follow them. It's the current tax legislation. As for desk audit, so how we know, where do we get the information about some individual buying shares, selling shares? This data is collected from a variety of sources. The tax code has certain provisions that oblige certain competent bodies to provide data starting January 1, 2021. There are norms in force that are setting out the requirements to transfer data by brokers. Plus, the National Bank is our source on currency transactions over $50,000. In addition, we have signed a multi-party convention on mutual information exchange, under which 62 countries that are parts of OECD, parties of OECD, must convey data on all financial accounts of our citizens that have been opened abroad. Another thing, we have also signed a protocol with CIS countries, under which the information is to be automatically shared on financial accounts and incomes received in those countries. As of today, we receive data from the National Bank starting from the second half of 2019. As for OECD countries, we have received information from 12 countries. Data was transferred on 5,000 of our citizens, and the amount of money is about 92 billion tenge, that was stated. Similar data was provided by Russia, Uzbekistan, about people who have accounts and income abroad. So based on this data, the data from the central repository of securities, if there are any discrepancies between the data, we send the relevant notifications. You know, those notifications were of such menacing character, like, you're to blame, you will go to prison if you don't come and don't prove you're not. You know, the text is really intimidating. I don't know who is the author of that text. The only thing I understood from here, thank you, Oygul, that tax and death is something inevitable in our country. Very soon, we will face public overall declaration, universal declarations. The public servants are already covered by this law, so I think there will be a boom in terms of tax consultants. I think there will be a new profession. I'll explain why. Zauria will explain to us, because she is the one who works for the Department of Tax Methodology. So she will explain us about the methodology related to taxes and losses related to investments, because it's really difficult, as of now to declare. Even the tax people themselves, they do not understand. For instance, I have like 100 transactions for 100 different shares throughout the year. It's really absurd. Previously, there were 4 lines. Now there are 10 lines, if I'm not mistaken. So for a single security, financially literate people, they know certain securities very well. They enter and they drop. They enter and they drop. And the current declaration methodology does not take into account many aspects, many nuances, because I think at the Tax Revenue Committee, there are no people who would write methodology understanding those caveats, those nuances. Could you please comment? Thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to this interesting event. There are many things that have been new to us. We have met the retail investors that we have seen on our Zoom platform when we discussed the amendments to the tax code. You said that taxes are inevitable. This is a fact. And the activity that we see recently in investments, when we see that there are attempts to make amendments to the tax legislation, it means that the market is developing. And I would like to congratulate you on that. This year, when we were drafting the bill that has been already concurred with the government as of today, there have been very active discussions and debates that when you determine the income from growth, some property income, when you sell the securities, that the losses must be taken into account. Well, what we say today, independent of the fact whether you're an individual or an entity, there is a universal approach. It's only the income that is being taxed. The same approach is applicable to securities. So starting this year, there is a proposal to take losses into account. Today, you say that there are no specialists who would be well versed in that, but we are open to cooperation, to learning, and it's important for us as for a competent body that is working on ensuring revenues to the budget. So we need to see how those losses and incomes are generated, how transparent it is, how available the information is. If this information is available to us and we will be able to see that, we do not mind that in declaring the individual accounts for both losses and incomes from securities operations. So the issue has been discussed for a while. The working group includes not only the Ministry of Finance. We are responsible for practical application of tax policy, but there is Ministry of National Economy who is responsible for tax policy, and there were other members in the working group. But the common solution, the common decision was that those amendments are not yet ready for implementation. They're still underway. They're still in progress. And to which extent they would be implemented depends on the activity of your market. It will depend from the extent of transparency of procedures that you will be able to demonstrate. Thank you. So we were mostly worried by the fact that the market is really emerging. It's nascent. And we see attempts to eradicate it. universal declarations and tax payment shows that our society is developing. Only when every person who makes some money starts paying those taxes, they will start asking questions to their parliament members and the president and the government. Previously, we did not get into the intricacies of the social compact. Today, we say that the social compact has been infringed. And now we are wondering, where's the money from the subsoil use going? And now we see a requirement from us to pay our personal income tax. Thank you, Igor, Zaurie. You are the people who put money in a budget for our country to be able to live. Let us proceed to the issues that we've been facing a lot recently. It's not even hype, but the pandemic of Ponzi schemes, of financial pyramids, and this really poor financial literacy of our community actually fosters those Ponzi schemes. So previously, it seemed really absurd to me. How would you take your money to some unlicensed people who are not competent in investing? But when the adult population finally realizes that they had no financial literacy lessons at school, I think it's the financial coaches and consultants within this new emerging industry to start teaching them. So I would like to ask the representatives of the financial court, Finance KZ, how to overcome this financial pyramid situation, how to teach investors to trust into proper instruments. Because the bonds, shares, and securities are now at the same level with financial pyramids and frauds. There is no difference for the majority of our population between those pyramids and proper bonds and securities. I would like to start with a remark to our colleagues from Tax Revenue Committee. Unfortunately, it's not only notifications that we receive, but the demands to pay the tax. And this is what we call the pressure. It's not just come to us and show. They want to tax already everything, the entire base. But we need to understand, the colleagues are talking about transparency, but they see only profits. But there are also losses. The brokers provide losses too. And the fact that we show no balance for this tax, we are disrupting the people who are actually eager to pay the tax. Those who fill in the 240 are active citizens, and we fully understand that. Until there is universal declaration, this form is very voluntary. The law is in place. We need to fill it in, but there are no levers on the part of Ministry of Finance and Tax Revenue on those who haven't filled the declaration. You are disrupting the people who are eager to pay. And now let me interrupt you. There are many financial consultants here in the panel. And even the Financial Regulation Agency, they knew what they would face, and they didn't come. And kudos to people who came, actually. This has been a remark to decision makers, actually. Let me comment. Zauria says, well, basically, I talk about the information that are related to amendments to the bill. As the Ministry of Finance, we supported that initiative. It's not us who impeded it. It was other competent bodies who were against tell us the names of those public bodies. We will start harassing them immediately. So you mentioned that it's the Ministry of National Economy that's responsible for tax policy, and you are responsible for administration. Well, they don't actually understand what's going on. Well, when we were coming here, when we were invited, we knew what kind of questions we would hear. The administration of securities, the feedback that we received, we understood the situation from our communication with our taxpayers. So we came a bit earlier to listen, to take part, to learn about all of the issues that are faced today. And those issues about losses, they've been raised recently too, and we've been looking into possible solutions to those issues. But since we are not the actual decision makers, we went to the Ministry of National Economy, to their working groups, to their platform. There we have all the representatives of public entrepreneurs, and there have been discussions, and I think that I will let our next panelist continue. I have a quiz for the audience. How much money was taken to financial pyramids by Kazakhs last year that was found unproven? 50 billion tenge. 50 billion tenge. This is a budget of a district center of a middle-sized province. And it's still an enigma for me why people are so picky in choosing a bank to hold a deposit, but believe those who promise them hundreds of percents a year. I think it's a trust issue for government and authorities, because I see many times, for instance, quite recently, I was attacked by bots from S-Group system. And they said that the government is covering it from you, that the government doesn't want people to be rich, and we are financial Robin Hoods, and we will give you 500% annually as an income on your investment. This is really an enigma for me. Well, Kazakhstan is not unique in this respect. We're not the only country who would like to sit on the couch just getting some passive income. Different countries have different percentages, but the frauds are everywhere. In the US and other countries, it's not our inherent problem, and we need to resolve it. We cannot do it at schools yet. Who is gonna do that at schools? Mathematician? Teacher of law? I took my own child to a preschool once, and one of the features was that for a senior group, they had financial literacy. Oh, this is great. Please tell me what this financial literacy lesson is about. And the preschool teacher said, you know, our community has a very high loan burden, and we will tell people that loans are bad. And I said, no, it's nonsense. Loan is a tool. Just like a hammer, you can kill someone or you can build a house. So if today, on September 1, you introduce financial literacy at schools, you'll only make it worse. Such lessons will be conducted by some physics teacher or physical education teacher, God forbid. I remember my own PE lessons. They were really great back at school. So financial literacy doesn't start with understanding what a loan is. Shares, loans, bonds, they will probably learn that by heart, but financial literacy starts with family, whether a mother or a father is running a budget. Do they know the expenses, assets, receivables and payables? If there is a budget in the family, the child will be financially literate. If there is no family budget, the child will be illiterate financially. Therefore, please install Excel. No like fashionable applications, even Kaspi, if you fall inside. There are great features to show your expenses. They will analyze when and how you spend money. Financial literacy starts there. As for the bad consequences, the adult senior generation remembers the Soviet bonds that the children were playing with because nobody ever bought them back. Our genetic memory tells us that those bonds and shares, they are all nonsense. Because we remember the 90s, we remember the false privatizations, we know that those instruments are not for long. Nobody believes in stock market. This genetic market is inside their brains, inside their families' mentality. The same you can say about Forex. You know, I think I will discover America for you. Forex is a good tool. There are exchange peers, many classical brokers have it. But what happened to Forex in our country? Binary traders came in and they killed the sector. For us, Forex, as of now, is, a swear word. One of the issues was raised about Tabas App and ETN. Similar situation is with ETN in the United States. In ETN, you can see a lot of fraud. So as of now, in US, ETNs are toxic because there have been many fraudulent cases with ETNs. So there is no simple answer how to see like 300% of annual rate. So I think we should start not with financial literacy, we should start with critical thinking. It's no secret that we consume the bulk of information daily that a person in 19th century consumed within the entire year. We see, read, and remember so much that we stop analyzing that. We just believe. So you need to always use your critical thinking. This is my advice to you.
Thank you very much. Realistically, that is a closed vicious circle from generation to generation in the independent Kazakhstan. We are seeing the second generation, 20 to 25 years back, second generation that does not know the normal capitalism. We still don't have children being financially literate. Although it's been 30 years now, unfortunately, statistics show 50 billion Kazakh tenge brought to financial pyramids, and that's the money that was found and demonstrated by police. Well, if to take into consideration the fact that not many money came to our securities market, we can make conclusion where the money goes. Well, in addition to the family, I think we should begin financial literacy at school. For example, Jusan Invest today are lecturing in the sphere of financial literacy. They have a special course, academic course for final year pupils in secondary schools. They facilitate the facilitators, train the trainers. Now let's talk about the breaking of that vicious circle, the continuity, how to popularize financial literacy among children. Janar will tell us. Arman, thank you very much. Good day to everybody. I wanted to thank, first of all, AIX for creating a platform where we can discuss important topics such as problems with fraudulent activity, development of retail, investment, financial literacy, particularly financial literacy without exaggeration touches upon any citizen of Kazakhstan. There is a direct relation between financial literacy and economic development of the country. Kazakhstan commenced the financial literacy program back in 2007. There were a lot of projects implemented. There was a state program on financial culture, encouragement, and a number of others. In general, the problems before the government, before the state, as of today, more than 70 countries are working to improve financial literacy of the population. Why? Because population have a lot of loans and credits. Population does not show the skill of long-term planning of expenditures, particularly in the third world. Private money management, illiteracy, and problems like that. So many countries have strategies to overcome those problems. We began that in 2007 when not so many countries were dealing with financial literacy. Today, Malaysia, Australia, and New Zealand are working on that. Let me interrupt you. I don't remember 2007. It's been 15 years now, and I think starting from 2007, no progress has been made. This is what I'm talking about. No continuity, no tradition. That constitutes the main complexity. Starting from 2007 and until 2011, financial literacy was done by Almaty Financial Hub. They had a lot of activities, retail investor exhibition, where various brokerage companies used to attend, and today nobody remains the names of those broker companies. Then in 2011, the National Bank began to implement projects again dedicated to financial literacy. Today, it's done by Agency on Development and Regulation of Financial Market. I wanted to tell you about the perception of literacy. Today, we have clear understanding that literacy is a must. It's a skill like shaving, writing, using a PC. When we were initially lecturing about financial literacy, we faced resistance, misunderstanding. Today, I can see the difference in the attitudes to the topic among the audiences. Various financial institutions in their time also implemented various programs aimed at financial literacy. For example, in 14 to 17, Kaspi Bank appropriated $1 million for financial literacy programs. They designed a wonderful web resource with video materials and articles about financial literacy, but later they made a decision to shut it down. So today again, financial literacy is in quite a vague condition. The same with Home Credit Bank. They also had a wonderful program. They had books published for children about financial literacy. Those books were publicly available, but today they have abandoned that practice, and looks like that topic is no longer topical for them. And because I've been dealing with financial literacy starting from 2007, I had a chance to see how resources, human, intellectual, monetary resources were directed into such projects, but eventually those projects did not succeed. So you can say that there is no continuity among the project. Yes, there is such a project, and today I remember one example from Poland. I like Central Bank of Poland. In 10 years, bankers were paying visits to all provinces of Poland, all cities, towns, and at schools they were teaching the teachers to teach financial literacy. So first they trained the teachers and then they launched textbooks into circulation. This is the model we want to achieve. As of today, the agency has a separate platform for financial literacy and education, but there are no projects implemented by the National Bank earlier there. Maybe later they will put it on the corporate website, but it would be great to have some sort of consolidation of all the projects implemented by various entities. The next speaker, please. Well, thank you very much for the given time. We are talking about consolidation, aggregation to help us save resources. Well, thank you very much. Realistically, there is no continuity. We've been doing that for many years, but we are still in the same point A, and I have an impression that financial literacy has deteriorated. It's good you have made a reference to Poland. The thing is, each teacher can process up to 20,000 pupils in 40 years. That is why teachers are a very good instrument to outreach the beginning. You see, mature people are hard to train. They have their own prejudices and superstitions. They got the burden of their own life experience. So realistically, financial literacy should begin from secondary school. It must begin from teachers operating in secondary schools. Today I had a lot of questions to the Agency of Financial Monitoring. Unfortunately, they didn't come here today. If I'm not mistaken, in the internet we have 20 video materials available about financial literacy. Someone is allocating money for producing those video materials, but people forget that in addition to video, you need some marketing. That is why the feedback with the audience has been lost. Basically, if we are talking about financial literacy, let's broadcast such materials in Khabar. The thing is, we have a lot of central television companies that we can employ. It's a total absurdity. There are many ways to ensure more effective dissemination, more planned dissemination of information about literacy. Now, the next speaker, Alibek. Alibek, you probably know that at present, soon the financial consultancy agreement shall be signed, and soon financial coaches will be outlaws if they don't receive appropriate licenses. They will be called investment brokers without the right to have the access to papers and money. So they will be called investment brokers. So as long as we have time left for the consulting, and based on your previous experience, what is the social and educational component of financial literacy in Kazakhstan? What trends you observe, and what is the role played by financial consultants and mass media? Why I'm asking Alibek is because he is a very popular blogger. He has 23,000 followers. Well, I would like to tell a lot of things, but please be brief. Well, to create a product, a video material or something else is one thing. It turns out that 80% of time is allocated to attract people's attention. The thing is, people do not watch videos. You need to produce a hype. You need to make some challenging titles. For example, you shall never become rich unless you do such and such, etc., etc. Or or you can put a girl in bikini. And oddly enough, such posts and blogs are the most popular ones, the ones with the ones that know how to attract the attention from the audience. So if to compare normal investments, normal consultants against financial pyramids that can advertise 20%, 30%, 100% per month, of course, we are losing the game because people compare. And today, ourselves as financial consultants are being more and more limited by the law. We will have from now on to buy licenses to create big LLPs, but at the same time it will be prohibited to us to make any promises. And this is the situation when we will lose the game against financial pyramids. This is it. Thank you. I agree. I think that we can play this situation. Yes, we can play it, at the age of universal declaring the financial consultants can become tax consultants on securities. Brokers and financial organizations by law are not in the position to render any consulting services. That's pretty much strange. I would probably agree that Freedom Finance would be happy to submit your declaration for a certain fee, but unfortunately they cannot do that. Well, the situation is changing now. Very soon, many companies shall become your tax agents, tax agency, tax consulting agency. Well, the only thing I can tell now, at present, we give brief informational messages to brokers. We ask brokers to publish on their sites the information that if, for example, you are receiving profits, please declare them. Well, if you have losses, you are not declaring them. The thing is, losses are yours, profits belong to the government. Now, I'm giving the floor to the last speaker because I want to keep the time for a Q&A session. Rasul, you are the main organizer of this panel session. Thank you very much. Can you tell us what novelties we can anticipate in Tabiz? Will you take part in the popular IPO? Will we be in the position to take part in the popular IPO through Tabiz? And what in general is the role of Tabiz in improvement of financial literacy? And some statistics, please. If you have any statistics, please bring on screen. Well, I'll start from the last question. Tabiz application was created together with the Security Exchange for improvement of financial literacy. You have said about video materials that people never watch. And the thing is, there is an academic approach, lectures, and we chose some practical approach. We have facilitated the pathway for an investor. You can buy something like a fund, but it will cost you 10 times cheaper, and this is a real thing. People are buying such things. People buy things and then ask questions, what needs to be done in regards to those things? Sometimes they ask question, why is the price going up or going down? And for example, there is Andrei's channel on the internet who can explain things. Or Andrei can explain out of 13 ETNs which ones to buy. Or people come to Alibek, and Alibek will tell them about Tabiz. Or a financial mentor. Well, okay. A financial mentor as well, so such an approach to At present, we have 25,000 accounts. People buy, people invest, and trial. Our investments start from $5. For $5, so of course you will be talking about critical thinking. Andre says it is not present. Yes, it does exist, but not everywhere. When users come to us, they start asking a lot of questions. Where's your license? Where's your registration? What is your asset base? What is your custody? And then they leave and never come back because they understand that S&P gives 6% compared to 300% a month, as follows from internet advertisement. So this is when the critical thinking gets switched off. And if you see something boring, a boring investment product, that is something realistically valued at global level. And in regards to statistics, we've been watching in the last 2 weeks activization of advertisement about financial pyramids. People are afraid of financial pyramids. And the advertisement of financial pyramids has also undermined the financial market. So what do we have to do in this situation? We inform the audience about our products. Our products are not toxic, not necessarily fantastic sales, but that is stable. Basically, we approach financial literacy from the standpoint of practicability. Well, I have an answer about IPO as well. We have spent more than 2 months for IPO preparation. We're at the low start. Legally, we are ready as well. So when the IPO happens, we shall be in readiness 1 day before. If somebody has a company that he wants to IPO, please come to us. Now let's have a Q&A session. Yes, Q&A session. How will you sell in accordance to the Currency Act? Because center regulations prohibit currency acts. This is the prohibition to sell Kazakh securities to Kazakh citizens in the center. Unfortunately, this is not a question to myself. This is the question to our regulator. So in Tabis, I will explain. If the Currency Act is not changed, Tabis shall not be capable of taking part in KMG IPO. That's sad. That explains why we don't have agency here and why the Currency Act was signed. Unfortunately, agency ignored that problem. Well, let us now give the floor to the audience, give people opportunities to ask their questions. Thank you very much. I wanted to answer Andrei's question. The situation you are talking about, particularly Tabis. Tabis is not a brokerage. You approach currency regulation in the classical way, the way you approach the IPO. Tabis is just a channel. This is the direct subscription. Direct subscription. That's a totally different method. So basically, it's an outlet. Wait a second. In no way is Tabis a competitor to brokers. It's just an additional channel to create better coverage and more proposals. This is accessibility of the product. But brokers in AIFC cannot do that because of the Currency Act. Andrei, let me answer here. This is the shortcoming. It needs to be corrected. and all those associated with Islamic finance suffer from that. They received licenses and now they cannot work. And at present, we are at the plenary session. We are supposed to talk positive. So the questions must be coming from the audience, and you're doing the vice versa way. Okay. I hope that in regards to Tabis, the answer is clear. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dake, you probably have a question. I've seen you around starting from the previous session. The speaker is not heard. He's not using the microphone. Question number 1. Until what time will investors be percepted? Until what time the State Revenue Committee shall percept investments into foreign assets as the evacuation of capitals from Kazakhstan? We know that the National Fund also evacuates fund to abroad, but nobody calls it capital. And the second question, when will the level of tax literacy in the State Revenue Committee improve geometrically? I mean tax literacy in regards to administration of taxation of securities. The thing is, investors tell us that the committee asks for contracts for each bargain and transaction. Can you imagine it? You are an interactive broker, and in one day you can conclude 1,000 transactions, and they tell you to bring 1,000 printed documents, printed contracts. So this is a nuance about tax declaration that needs improvement.
So what I would like to state is that investments abroad into shares, we don't see them as capital outflow or evacuation, but income that comes from foreign sources. This is how we view it. Secondly, about the desk audit. Our regional departments request the documents that would be mentioned in the tax code. So if you think that you have no income or you have no obligations to declare your property abroad, the tax code actually states very specific rules. You must explain and provide justifying documents. In this case, you can just resort to a broker's report. I think it's very individual, case by case, but as far as I know, when you provide your explanation, you attach brokerage reports, but they are not, certified with any stamp. It's just scanned. We accept that too, and we consider that too. May I also add, as for capital evacuation, I think those claims to our Tax Revenue Committee is unsubstantiated. It's not our perception. We only administer the state policy. We are now soon going to accept a new bill on dividend policy, and there will be an exemption for dividends inside Kazakhstan. They will be taxed only when they are exported abroad. New taxation is provided for dividends on securities that are offered at stock markets. Tax code actually distinguishes between the dividends on securities in Kazakhstan at KASE. They are under tax code, and the AIFC is the constitutional statute. And there will be a new amendment to tax code. Previously, the exemption was everything on KASE, but now only in case of active trading at those exchanges. May I ask a question? So if a company is registered with AIFC, according to the constitutional statute as of now, they're exempt from dividend taxation. Will that continue? As for the constitutional statute, it must be read literally, verbatim. There are individuals, private individuals, people who are investing. As far as I know, it's paragraph 7 of Article 6 that discusses the dividend incomes, value growth. It is applicable to Kazakhstani citizens who buy securities that are offered at AFC. They are exempt from the taxation of incomes from dividend value growth. As for AIFC participants, they're exempt from incomes from sales of financial services, but it is by the list of services. There are other types of economic activities, like separate accounting, legal and accounting services, and so on. Many people interpret the constitutional statute differently. Like all the participants who are registered, if they obtain any dividends, they are exempt. The same is perceived about the value growth. We're probably talking about different paragraphs of Article 6. I'm talking about paragraph 7. First of all, indeed, I would like to thank all of the panelists because the issues that have been accumulated, they have all been raised today. I would like to thank Andrei for his very interesting Telegram channel that actually discloses financial pyramids. And there is a universal opinion about the financial literacy that needs to be fostered, and I would like to thank you for raising this. It's really great that you're working with children on that. And my appreciation goes to Tax Revenue Committee for just coming here. This is the first step towards, listening to the market, speaking about you. And if you're interested, I will tell you what we say. Our company is one of the oldest in the market, Skybridge Invest, and the clients who have invested, by the end of the year, we have guided them and supported them to make sure they prepare their declarations, preparing extracts from their accounts, from the international accounts, but we do not take any responsibility for their further declaration. This is their personal responsibilities. But the clients are on the brink of tears. They're about to burst into tears because they had a negative year and they have to pay their taxes. Well, you were right to mention that the losses are not deductibles. This is the first question. And the second very scary question, our market colleague has voiced that many foreign securities are not viewed negatively as some capital outflow. But even if there are transactions on them, there are deductibles from the gross value. So if you buy for $10,000, if you sell it by $9,000, up to $9,000, you have to pay a tax. And this stinks to the sky. All S&P 500 companies are in Delaware. Delaware is an offshore. And if it's an offshore, you pay from the gross. And if you sell with losses, it's a nonsense, really, to pay from the gross. So expressing the interests of our investors, I would like to, as you have mentioned, to be proactive. We invited tax consultants, independent ones, private ones, and they gave a general tip. If any of you have invested into S&P 500, you must pay taxes. But how we resolve this issue? Our time is running out. Could you please be concise in giving you questions. So the company registered in Delaware, it's offshore, you have to pay. The securities have been paid on ISN that is registered in California, non-offshore. Pay as if you have bought an asset. Is that proper interpretation? Could you confirm that? When we administer, we are guided by the type of the source of payment. It's not the broker who pays. It's the buyer who pays. But we consider the shares of the company that sells the shares. So we look at the incorporation place of the company. In your case, you mentioned, but this kills the market. Then we won't be able to invest in S&P 500. But you mentioned that the brokerage platform is in an offshore zone. The company is incorporated. S&P 500 is fully registered in offshore. Then it is the sales value that is to be taxed. May we give the floor to the youngest one? Thank you, everyone. I have a question. I have a request to all of you. Please disseminate the information about stock market, shares, securities among children. You might think that there are not too many teenagers who would be interested in that, but there are lots of them. In TikTok, right? Where do we go? No, no, no. I'll tell you a short story. I wanted to find some proponents, some team who would be interested in investments. I have interested in that for over a year, and I've been looking for my peers to be interested in that. And after a year, how old are you, by the way? I'm 14. And after a year of seeking, I found peers from all over the world, Russia, Kazakhstan, United States, Ukraine, and Belarus. And we've been communicating, and my peers wrote to me, "Hi, I know you. Let us develop together. Let us grow together. I like you, and I can see that there is great potential and great prospects. So my great request to you is to please continue the outreach on this topic. There are many teenagers who are interested in investments in Kazakhstan." Thank you so much. Rasul, what's the lowest entry age for Tabbas? It's 16. In Jusan, it is 10 years. So you're not old enough for Tabbas, but you may invest in Jusan. I fully support young people who are now overwhelmed with information, but they evolve and develop faster. I do support that we conduct outreach among youth, and this is how we can break this vicious circle. You remember the Bloody January, and many of those who were the main actors in those horrible events, those were people with low financial literacy, with high financial burden. And if we don't want those things to repeat, their average age was 29. This is actually a very explosive mixture. Young population, low financial literacy means that there will be more bloody Januaries because, like, for 20,000 tenge, you can take anyone out into the street. You can drag them out into the street and make them loot or riot. I would like to add, I would like to know the name of this teenager and invite him over to our platform where we get peers together. It's an open platform, Investment Plus Study. Come to us, to our Telegram and Instagram channel. Alibek, stop advertising. Just one question from Minority Shareholder Association to the Revenue Committee. I would like to thank them for coming. Unlike the representatives of the other competent body that is not represented here, the first remark about the fact that the losses to be put on the balance to take account of the losses in taxation. You know, this provision was in place until 2012 in the tax code, and we're only talking about reviving that norm, that provision, nothing else. You mentioned the system of automated information sharing, CRS, under OECD. In that CRS, there is an interesting feature. When you receive information, there are like 19 countries, 92 billion tenge you mentioned, and 5,000 people, right, who were mentioned in this information sharing, those lucky ones. So CRS has one feature. When they send you the information, they give you the turnover on the security. They don't give you the value growth. They only give you the turnovers. For instance, you have now $100,000, and there have been like 1,000 operations for like $1 million throughout a year. And state revenue says, you know, you've had a turnover of 1 million. Please pay 10%. I would like to warn everybody. CRS, you know, will give you like really fun times. This year, there were notifications. When the CRS is in the game, you will see an even worse situation. You know, financial literacy is something that needs to be fostered not only among the population, but the tax revenue committee people too. Well, it's a joke still, but still, our oversight bodies, they are subject to a natural selection, but the tax people are always, you know, like standalone people because they are considered to be smarter, more intelligent, unlike law enforcement. You know, the practice looks like this, not because the tax people are incompetent. There are some other issues. For instance, when we obtain data that you have sold some shares, there is no data what was the purchase price. So the person who obtains some incomes, who works in the sphere, they come with a declaration. We do not require income tax on the entire turnover. They bring the justification documents, and they declare only the difference that shows their income as they see it. If we compare 2020 and 2021, previously, 1,000 individuals were declaring. In 2021, we have seen 3,500 declarations, and the income tax went up. 600 people have shown 200 million of income. Our goal is not to collect taxes right now, but we are giving the right of individual declarations for, you know, raising awareness among people that they need to declare. You know, the people who bring declarations, they are not taxed because there are many adjustments, there are many benefits in the tax code. Even if they have some value growth, they can decrease it by using a certain benefit or a certain deduction. Thank you so much. I made a video of you, you know. They scolded me for not finishing the panel right now. I would like to thank the panel. I would like to thank the floor. My special thanks goes to you, State Revenue Committee, Zauria Igul. Thank you so much.